Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to bring you a battle between the Ravnica Allegiance guild kits and the Battle of the Horde challenge deck from Born of the Gods. We'll be playing 2 games against the Horde, first on normal difficulty with 3 turns before the Horde attacks, and then we'll be playing on hard mode. We'll be using 3 hero cards for this battle. We have the Harvester, it says tap, draw a card, then discard a card. The Vanquisher, which says your starting hand size is increased by 1, your maximum hand size is increased by 1, and the Explorer, which says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Since I only have 1 copy of each of these cards, we are going to apply all of these cards to all 5 decks simultaneously. We'll start by drawing 8 cards apiece. Simic draws a Forest, Skitter Eel, Momorvig, Simic Visionary, Experiment, Crash, Coiling Oracle, Frilled Mystic, and Forest. I think this is a fine first hand to take. Orzhov gets a Vizkopa Guildmage, Ethereal Absolution, 1000 Lashes, Plagued Rasulka, Debtor's Knell, Swamp, Final Payment, and Orzhov Guildgate. This is a bit of a slow hand, but I think because we have some plays that we can make, we will keep this hand. Rakdos draws a Master of Cruelties, Swamp, Mountain, Jagged Poppet, Rakdos Shred Freak, Riot Spikes, Swamp, and Skewer the Critics. I think we keep this hand because we have some aggression and some things to cast. Gruul draws a Savage Twister, Forest, Gruul Turf, Forest, Zertaw Swine, Forest, Birds of Paradise, and Mountain. This is kind of slow on action and not much that we actually want to do, so we're gonna return this and hope for a better hand. Gruul draws a Gruul Turf, Cindervines, Gruul Signet, Forest, Gruul Charm, Gruul Guildgate, Clan Guildmage, and a Forest. I think this is a little better just because we have a creature. Azorius draws an Azorius Guildgate, Judge's Familiar, Island, Sky Hussar, Sky Tether, Dramatic Rescue, Stoic, Ephemera, and Plains. I don't think this is a good hand, but I think it's enough to keep and hopefully we'll draw into something better using the Harvester. Turn 1, we'll draw. Simic draws an Island. Orzhov draws a Pitiless Pontiff. Rakdos draws an Udvara Hellkite. Gruul draws a Mountain. Azorius draws Depose, Deploy. Simic will play the Forest and the Island. We'll tap them both, and we'll play the Coiling Oracle. It's a 1/1 Snake Elf Druid, and when it enters the battlefield, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put that card into your hand. It's a land card, and it'll enter the battlefield tapped because it's a Simic Guildgate. Orzhov will play the Swamp, and it'll play the Orzhov Guildgate. It enters the battlefield tapped. And then we will tap the Swamp to play the Plagued Rasulka. This is a 1/1 Spirit, and for black you can sacrifice a creature. Target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn. Rakdos plays a Swamp and a Mountain. We'll tap them both and play the Rakdos Shred Freak. This is a 2/1 Human Berserker with haste. Gruul plays a Forest and a Mountain. We'll tap them both and play the Clan Guildmage. This is a 2/2 Human Shaman, and for 1 and a red you can tap it. Target creature can't block this turn. 2 green tap. Target land you control becomes a 4/4 elemental creature with haste until end of turn. It's still a land. Azorius will play an Azorius Guildgate tapped, and we'll play a Plains. We'll tap the Plains, and we'll play the Judge's Familiar. This is a 1/1 bird with flying, and you can sacrifice Judge's Familiar to counter a target instant or sorcery spell unless its counter pays 1. This is very good against the Horde's really good spells. We'll go to the Horde's turn, and at the end of the Horde's turn, we will use the Harvester. Simic draws a Guardian Project, and we will discard the Skitter Eel. Orzhov draws a Vindictive Vampire, and we'll discard 1000 Lashes. Rakdos draws Spawn of Mayhem, and we will discard the Master of Cruelties. Gruul draws a Zertaw Goblin, and we'll discard the Gruul Charm. Azorius draws a Court Hussar, and we will discard the Sky Tether. We forgot to attack the Horde with the Rakdos Shred Freak like I was planning on doing, so we're just going to say that we did it. Rakdos mills 2 for 2 damage. We'll untap. Simic draws a Void Slime. Orzhov draws an Orzhov Basilica. Rakdos draws an Avatar of Discord. Gruul draws a Wasteland Viper. Azorius draws a Plains. Simic will play both Forests. will tap 4 mana and play Guardian Project. This is an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard, draw a card. Orzhov will tap the Guildgate for white and the Swamp. We'll play the Pitiless Pontiff. This is a 2/2 Vampire Cleric, and for 1 you can sacrifice another creature. Pitiless Pontiff gains Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn. We'll play the Orzhov Basilica tapped, and that'll bounce the Swamp back to our hand. And then we'll play the Swamp again as our second land for the turn. Rakdos plays the Swamp. Rakdos will tap out. And then we'll play the Avatar of Discord. It's a 5/3 Avatar with flying. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you discard 2 cards. We'll discard the Spawn of Mayhem, and we will discard the Utvara Hellkite. Gruul will tap the Forest and the Mountain to play the Gruul Signet. It's an artifact. It says 1 tap, add red and green. We'll play a Forest. We'll tap it and tap the Gruul Signet to add red and green. We'll play the Zertaw Goblin. This is a 2/2 Goblin Berserker with Riot. We'll go ahead and use the +1 counter mode of Riot and play that. And for our second land, we'll play the Gruul Turf. It'll enter the battlefield tapped. We'll bounce the Forest back into our hand because of it. Azorius will play a Plains and an Island. Then we'll tap 3, and we'll play the Court Hussar. This is a 1/3 Vidalcan Knight with Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them to the hand, and the rest onto the bottom of your library in any order. We'll look at the top 3. We have the Spirit of the Spires, Unbreakable Formation, and Detention Sphere. I believe the best deal here is to take the creature since we are light on those. And we'll put the Unbreakable Formation next to the bottom here. We'll go to combat. Coiling Oracle will attack. Orzhov sends the Plague Versulka. Rakdos sends the Rakdos Shred Freak. Gruul sends the Clan Guildmage. And Azorius will send the Judge's Familiar. That's 7 damage. We mill 1 Refreshing Elixir. It says, when Refreshing Elixir is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player gains 5 life. There are 5 players, so we'll gain 25 life to go up to 45. Then we'll go to the Horde's final resting turn, and then at the end of that turn we'll use the Harvester. Simic draws a Forest, and we will discard the Void Slime. Orzhov draws an Orzhov Guildgate, and we will discard the Final Payment. Rakdos draws a Rix Mahdi Reveler, and we'll discard the Riot Spikes. Gruul draws a Mountain, and we will discard the Gruul Guildgate. Azorius draws a Sphinx of New Prov, and we'll discard the Stoic Ephemera. We'll untap. Simic draws a Forest. Orzhov draws a Plains. Rakdos draws a Swamp. Gruul draws a Burning Tree Shaman. Azorius draws an Island. Simic will play both Forests. We'll tap 5. And we'll play Momir Vig, Simic Visionary. He's a 2/2 Legendary Elf Wizard. Whenever you cast a green creature spell, you may search your library for a creature card and reveal it. If you do, search your library and put that card on top of it. Whenever you cast a blue creature spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put that card in your hand. Because we cast a non-token creature that we don't have somewhere, we will draw a card. That is a Miming Slime. Orzhov will play the Guildgate tapped and a Plains. We'll tap 4 mana to play the Vindictive Vampire. This is a 2/3 vampire, and whenever another creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. Rakdos will play the Swamp. We'll tap 3, and we'll play the Jagged Poppet. This is a 3/4 Ogre Warrior. Whenever it is dealt damage, discard that many cards, and whenever Jagged Poppet deals combat damage to a player, if you have no cards in your hand, that player discards cards equal to the damage. Gruul plays the Mountain and the Forest. Gruul will play a Cindervines. This is an enchantment. It says whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Cindervine deals 1 damage to that player. And 1 sacrifice Cindervines, destroy target artifact or enchantments. Cindervines deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. We'll also tap 1 green mana and play the Wasteland Viper. We'll hold the Burning Tree Shaman. Azorius will play the Island. Azorius will tap 4, And we'll play the Sphinx of New Prov. This is a 4/3 Sphinx with flying and vigilance. Spells your opponents cast that targeted cost 2 more to cast. We'll go to combat. We'll attack with a Coiling Oracle. Orzhov will attack with a Pitiless Pontiff and the Plagued Vasulka. Rakdos will attack with the Shred Freak and the Avatar. Gruul will attack with the Zertog Goblin and the Clan Guildmage. Azorius will attack with the Court Hussar and the Judge's Familiar. That'll deal 18 damage to the Horde. We milled 1 Plundered Statue. It says, when Plundered Statue is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player draws a card. Simic draws an island. Orzhov draws the Ultimate Price. Rakdos draws a Mountain. Gruul draws a Pit Fight. Azorius draws a Render Silent. We'll pass the turn to the Horde. They'll cast the top 6 spells. They cast a Unquenchable Fury. Each Minotaur can't be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures. A Minotaur Younghorn. This is a 2/2 Minotaur with haste. It attacks each turn if able. A Consuming Rage. Whenever a Minotaur attacks this turn, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Destroy that creature at the end of combat. A Minotaur Younghorn. Massacre Totem. It's an artifact. At the beginning of the Horde's pre-combat main phase, reveal an additional card from the top of that Horde's library. The Horde casts that card. And a Minotaur Goreseeker. This is a 3/2 Minotaur with haste. It attacks each turn if able. These will all come attacking as 4/2s or 5/2s. We will decline to block because it's hard to block and they're going to die anyways. So we'll take a total of 13 damage and go back down to 32. The Horde will sacrifice each of their creatures. At the end of the Horde's turn, we'll use the Harvester. Simic draws a Troll-bred Guardian, and we will discard the Miming Slime. Orzhov draws Tasia, Orzhov Scion, and we'll discard Ultimate Price. Rakdos draws a Rakdos Carnarium, and we'll discard Skewer the Critics. We also should have played this Mountain last turn, so we'll do so. Gruul draws Scab Clan Mauler, and we'll discard Pit Fight. Also, Cindervines will have done 2 damage to the Horde because of the casting of those 2 non-creature spells. We'll get around to that. Azorius will draw a Plains, and we'll discard the Depose Deploy. We'll mill 2 off the Cindervines damage, which we forgot to do. We'll untap. Simic draws a Simic Ascendancy. Orzhov draws a Smothering Tide. Rakdos draws a Carnival Carnage. Gruul draws a Rebel Hulk. Azorius draws Lavinia of the 10th. Simic plays an island. We'll tap all 8. We'll play the Simic Ascendancy, which is an enchantment. We'll take 1 damage from the Cindervines, going down to 11. It says 1 green blue, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. At the beginning of upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters, you win the game. Then with the rest of the mana, we'll play Experiment Crash. This is a 4/6 legendary ooze mutant. It has all the activated abilities of each other creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. You can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. Because we cast a blue and a green spell, we'll search for a card, put it on top, and then draw it. We'll take the Simic Sky Swallower, stick it on the top of the deck, and then we'll draw it. It goes into our hand. Orzhov will tap 6. And they'll play the Ethereal Absolution. This is an enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Creatures your opponents control get -/-1. And for 2 white-black, exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. If it was a creature card, you create a 1/1 black and white spirit creature token with flying. Rakdos will play the Rakdos Carnarium, bouncing the mountain back to our hand. We'll put the mountain in as our second land for the turn. Gruul will tap 6 mana and play the Rebel Hulk. This is a elemental, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. That is 5. It has Blood Rush, but that won't matter. Azorius will play the Plains. Azorius will spend 4 mana to play Spirit of the Spires. This is a 2/4 spirit with flying. Other creatures you control with flying get +0/+1. That makes the Judge's Familiar 1/2 and the Sphinx of New Prog a 4/4. We'll go to combat. We'll attack with Momir Vig, the Simic Visionary, and the Coiling Oracle. We'll also attack with the Pitiless Pontiff, the Plagued Vasilka, and the Vindictive Vampire. Rakdos will attack with the Jagged Poppet, the Avatar of Discord, and the Rakdos Shred Freak. Gruul will attack with the Zertog Goblin, the Clan Guildmage, and the Wasteland Viper. Azorius will attack with the Sphinx of New Prog, the Judge's Familiar, and the Court Hussar. That'll do 33 damage to the Horde. There are only 25 cards left, so the Ravnica Allegiance Guild Kits easily defeat the Horde, and we'll be right back for Hard Mode. It's time for Hard Mode. The Horde will only have 2 turns before they come in and attack, so we'll get started right away, drawing 8 cards apiece. Simic draws a Simic Growth Chamber, Zamek Guildmage, Coiling Oracle, Cloudfin Raptor, Cytoplast Rootkin, Rabid Hybridization, Forest, and Plaxcaster Frogling. I don't think that this land combination will actually work for us, so we're going to mulligan. Simic draws a Simic Guildgate, Cloudfin Raptor, Forest, Trollbred Guardian, Simic Guildgate, Simic Growth Chamber, Skitter Eel, and Urban Evolution. This is not a good hand, but it is a hand that we can keep. Orzhov draws an Orzhov Guildgate, Angel of Despair, Death Pact Angel, Swamp, Basilica Bellhaunt, Orzhov Pontiff, Teysa, Orzhov Scion, and Ministrant of Obligation. I don't think we can keep this hand with just 2 lands and giant creatures, so we'll send this back. Orzhov draws a Pitiless Pontiff, Consecrate Consume, Basilica Bellhaunt, Plains, Teysa Karloff, Plains, Swamp, and Orzhov Basilica. This is an okay hand, we will keep it. Rakdos draws a Mountain, Utvara Hellkite, Swamp, Rakdos Guildmage, Blade Juggler, Carnival Carnage, Skewer the Critics, and Rakdos Guildmage. I don't like this hand, but the fact that we have 2 creatures we can cast with the 2 mana that we have, I think makes it fine enough to keep if we can just loot into better mana. Gruul draws a Collision Colossus, Gruul Guildgate, Burning Tree Emissary, Sunder Shaman, Burning Tree Shaman, Zertos Swine, Immolation Shaman, and a Mountain. I don't think we can keep this with just 2 lands, so we're going to return this. Gruul draws a Collision Colossus, Savage Twister, Gruul Guildgate, Rubble Hulk, Mountain, Gruul Signet Mountain. This is also a really bad hand. There's nothing early in terms of plays, and the Rubble Hulk is at 6, so we're going to return it again and go to 7. Gruul draws a Gruul Guildgate, Gruul Turf, Gruul Charm, Mountain, Rebel Belt Raiders, Wasteland Viper, Zertog Goblin, and Scab Clan Mauler. I think this is an okay hand to keep. We'll take the Wasteland Viper and we'll stick it at the bottom. Azorius draws Archon of the Triumvirate, Plains, Island, Judge's Familiar, Detention Sphere, Azorius Guildgate, and Island. This is not an especially good hand, and I think we're going to mulligan it because a 1-drop and a 7-drop do not a good hand make. Azorius draws a Dramatic Rescue, Plains, Azorius Chancery, Azorius Guildmage, Archon of the Triumvirate, Island, Liev Sky Knight, and an Azorius Signet. I think this is a better hand, so we will keep it. Turn 1 we'll draw because it's multiplayer. Simic draws a Simic Guildgate, Orzhov draws a Swamp, Rakdos draws a Rakdos Guildgate, Gruul draws a Mountain, Azorius draws an Island. Simic will play 2 Guildgates tapped. Orzhov will play a Plains and a Swamp. We'll tap them both to play the Pitiless Pontiff. Rakdos will play a Mountain and a Swamp. We'll tap them both to play the Rakdos Guildmage. This is a 2/2 Zombie Shaman for 3 black. Discard a card. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. And 3 red. Create a 2/1 red Goblin creature token with haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Gruul will play the Gruul Guildgate tapped and a Mountain. Azorius will play a Plains and an Island. We'll tap both to play the Azorius Guildmage. This is a 2/2 Veldalkin Wizard, and for 2 and white, tap target creature. For 2 and blue, counter target activated ability. We'll go to the Horde's turn. They'll end their turn. We'll use the Harvester at the end of their turn. Simic draws a Forest, and we will discard the Guildgate. Orzhov draws a Swamp. We'll discard the Swamp. Rakdos draws a Rixmati Reveler, and we'll discard the Utvara Hellkite. Gruul draws a Gruul Guildgate, and we'll discard the Gruul Charm. Azorius draws a Spirit of the Spires, and we will discard the Archon of the Triumvirate. We'll untap. will draw. Simic draws an island. Orzhov draws a swamp. Rakdos draws a Rakdos key rune. Gruul draws a Xertos swine. Azorius draws a sky tether. Simic will play an island. We'll tap the island to play a Cloudfin Raptor. This is a 0/1 bird mutant with flying and evolve. We'll play a Simic Growth Chamber as well, bouncing the island back to our hand. Orzhov will play a plains and a swamp. We'll tap it all and play the Basilica Bellhaunt. This is a 3/4 spirit. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card and you gain 3 life. My opponent doesn't have a hand, but will still gain 3 life and go to 23. Rakdos will play the Guildgate tapped. Rakdos will tap again and play a second Guildmage. Gruul will play a Guildgate tapped, and then we'll tap these two for green and red, and we'll play a Zertar Goblin. We'll use its ride ability to put a counter on it. Then we'll play the Gruul Turf. We'll bounce the mountain back into our hand. Azorius will play an island. We'll tap everything. And we'll play the Liev Sky Knight. This is a 3/1 human knight with flying. When it enters the battlefield, detain target non-land permanent and an opponent controls. They don't have anything. And then we'll play the Chancery tapped. We'll pick up the island. We'll go to combat. We'll attack with the Pitiless Pontiff, a Rakdos Guildmage, and an Azorius Guildmage. That'll do 6 damage to the Horde. Then we'll pass to the Horde. The Horde will cast the top 6 cards. They cast a Altar of Mogus. At the beginning of the Horde's pre-combat main phase, reveal an additional card from the top of the Horde's library. The Horde casts that card. A Minotaur Younghorn. A Refreshing Elixir, same as Altar of Mogus. A Minotaur Goreseeker. A Minotaur Younghorn. And a Minotaur Goreseeker. These will all come attacking. We'll block a Goreseeker with the Bellhaunt and a Younghorn with the Zertog Goblin. We'll take 5 and go down to 18. 1 Younghorn and 1 Goreseeker will die. At the end of the Horde's turn, we'll use the Harvester. Simic draws a Coiling Oracle and will discard a Forest. Orzhov draws a Martyred Rusalka and will discard the Consecrate Consume. Rakdos draws a Thrill Kill Assassin and we will discard the Carnival Carnage. Gruul draws a Birds of Paradise and will discard the Birds of Paradise. Azorius draws an island, will discard the Sky Tether. We'll untap. Simic draws an Applied Biomancy. Orzhov draws an Imperious Oligarch. Rakdos draws a Mountain. Gruul draws a Boroborigmos. Azorius draws Lavinia of the 10th. Simic will play the island and a forest. We'll tap 2 mana to play the Coiling Oracle. We'll reveal a card, and then we'll put the Nimbus Swimmer in our hand. Then we'll tap 4 mana, and we will play the Skitter Eel. This is a 3/3 fish crab with 2 blue adapt 2. This will trigger evolve on the Cloudfin Raptor and make it a 1/2. Orzhov will play a swamp. We'll tap these 4. And we'll play Teysa Karlov. She is a 2/4 legendary human advisor. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Creature tokens you control have vigilance and lifelink. We'll also tap a plains to play the Martyred Rusalka. This is a 1/1 spirit with white sacrifice creature. Target creature can't attack this turn. We'll play the Orzhov Basilica as our second land tapped, and that'll bounce the swamp back into our hands. Rakdos will play the mountain. Gruul will play both mountains. Azorius will play both islands. We'll tap 2 to play the Azorius Signet, and then we'll tap 5 to play Lavinia of the 10th. She's a 4/4 legendary human soldier with protection from red. When she enters the battlefield, detain each non-land permanent your opponent's control with converted mana cost 4 or less. So we'll detain those so they can't attack or block next turn. We'll go to combat. Simic attacks with the Raptor. Orzhov will attack with the Bellhaunt and the Pontiff. Rakdos will attack with both Guild Mages. Gruul will send in the Goblin. Azorius will send in the Sky Knight and the Guild Mage. That'll do 18 damage to the Horde. We mill a Refreshing Elixir. We'll gain 5 life per player to go up to 38. We also hit a Plundered Statue, so we'll each draw a card. Simic draws a Trigon Predator. Orzhov draws an Orzhov Basilica. Rakdos draws a Jagged Poppet. Gruul draws a Gruul Guildgate. Azorius draws an Azorius Charm. Rakdos will spend 3 to play the Blade Juggler. It's a 3/2 human rogue with Spectacle 2 black. That's how we played it for that cost. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. We'll take 1 damage to go to 37 and we'll draw a mountain. We'll play the mountain. And then we will tap the Guildgate and the mountain to play the Thrill Kill Assassin. This is a 1/2 human assassin with Death Touch, and Unleash will unleash it to make it a 2/3. Gruul will follow up with a Scab Clan Mauler. This is a 1/1 human berserker with Bloodthirst 2. Since we did some damage, we're going to make it a 3/3. And then we'll pay 4 more to play the Rebel Belt Raiders. This is a 3/3 human warrior, and whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each attacking creature you control. We'll now pass to the Horde. They'll untap. They'll cast 8 cards. These 2 cannot attack. They cast a Mogus Chosen. It enters the battlefield tapped. A Mogus Chosen. It enters the battlefield tapped. A Reckless Minotaur. The Mogus Chosen is a 5/4 Minotaur, and it attacks each turn of Fable. The Reckless Minotaur is a 4/1 Minotaur with haste, and it attacks each turn of Fable. At the beginning of the end step, destroy it. We also have a Minotaur Younghorn, another Reckless Minotaur, Consuming Rage. Whenever a Minotaur attacks this turn, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Destroy that creature at end of combat. A Phobos Reaver. It's a 2/3 Minotaur with haste and attacks each turn of Fable. And a Minotaur Goreseeker, we know that one. All of these will attack, and they will have +2/+0. And they'll all be destroyed at the end of combat. That is a total of 25 damage. I think we're going to sacrifice a Coiling Oracle and a Martyred Rusalka on the Reckless Minotaurs. So we will only take 13 damage. We'll lose the Coiling Oracle. We'll lose the Martyred Rusalka. We'll take 13 damage to go down to 24. We destroyed all the attacking Minotaurs. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Simic draws a Guardian Project, and we will discard the Guardian Project. Orzhov draws a Teysa Orzhov Scion, and we'll discard the Orzhov Basilica. Rakdos draws a Splatterthug, and we will discard the Skewer the Critics. Gruul draws the Mountain, and we'll discard a Gruul Guildgate. Azorius draws a Judge's Familiar, and we'll discard the Azorius Charm. We'll untap. Simic draws a Gyre Sage. Orzhov draws an Orzhov Charm. Rakdos draws a Riot Spikes. Gruul draws Gore Clan Rampager. Azorius draws an Azorius Guildgate. Simic will spend 2 mana to play the Gyre Sage. It's a 1/2 Elf Druid with Evolve, and you can add green for each +1/+1 counter on it. Then we'll spend 3 mana to play the Trigon Predator. This is a 2/3 Beast with flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. That'll evolve the Cloudfin Raptor to a 2/3, and it'll also evolve the Gyre Sage to a 2/3. Orzhov will play the Swamp. We'll tap 5. We'll play the Teysa Orzhov Scion. She's a 2/3 legendary human advisor, and you can sacrifice 3 white creatures to exile target creature. Whenever another black creature you control dies, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And we'll also play the Imperious Oligarch. This is a 2/1 human cleric with vigilance and afterlife 1. We'll go to combat. We'll attack with the Skitter Eel, the Cloudfin Raptor, the Basilica Bellhaunt, the Pitiless Pontiff, Teysa Karlov, the Blade Juggler, Rakdos Guildmage, Thrill Kill Assassin, the Scab Clan Mauler, the Zertog Goblin, the Rebel Raiders, and the Rebel Raiders will get 3 +1/+1 counters for attacking with 3 creatures. We'll also attack with Lavinia the 10th, Azorius Guildmage, and Liev Sky Knight. That'll deal 42 damage to the Horde. That mills them completely out. They still have Minotaurs on the battlefield, so that won't end everything. We have the Massacre Totem. We can't mill anymore, so it doesn't matter. The Vitality Salve, when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player will put a creature card from their graveyard to the battlefield. So we'll do that now. Simic will return a Coiling Oracle to the battlefield. We'll reveal a card, and then the Forest will go onto the battlefield tapped. Orzhov will take the Martyred Rusalka and put it back into the battlefield. Rakdos will take the Utvara Hellkite and put that on the battlefield. It's a 6/6 dragon with flying. When a dragon you control attacks, create a 6/6 dragon creature token with flying. Gruul will return the Birds of Paradise. It's a 0/1 bird with flying, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Azorius will return Archon of the Triumvirate. It's a 4/5 Archon with flying. Whenever it attacks, detain up to 2 target non-land permanents your opponents control. Rakdos will follow up by paying 3 mana and playing the Splatter Thug. This is a 2/2 human warrior with First Strike and Unleash. We will not unleash it. And then we will spend 1 more mana to put Riot Spikes on it. It's an enchant creature. It gets +2 -1, making it a 4/1 First Strike. Gruul will play the Mountain. We'll tap out and play Borborygmos. This is a 6/7 legendary Cyclops with Trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Azorius will tap 4 and will play the Spirit of the Spires. This is a 2/4 spirit with flying. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0, making the Archon a 4/6. We'll pass to the Horde. They'll untap. They'll cast the top 8 cards, but they can't, so they'll just attack with their creatures. The Hellkite will eat one of the chosen. Borborygmos will eat another one of the Mogus is chosen. The Gorsicle will run into the Archon, and the Younghorn will run into the Splatter Thug. That'll kill all of these, and all our creatures will survive. And then the Ravnica Allegiance Guild Kits will win the day against the Horde. This was not too bad. Let me know what your thoughts were about the games in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. Next time, I'll be pitting these guild kits up against the Defeat a God challenge deck from Journey into Nyx. Until then, this was Refresh, and thanks for watching.